Hello, I am Claude Chevalier. I am in charge of the Fintech sector, Fintech expert for the Choose the Paris Region agency. And so please do not hesitate to ask questions and use the chat when available so that after my presentation we can have a session of exchanges. So it's a pleasure to be here today. And so we'll see the cutting edge ecosystem for the growth of your fintech, which is the title of my presentation today. Yes, who we are. So Choose the Paris Region is the premier business and innovation catalyst supporting companies with their development in the Paris region. And personally, I cover the financial sector and especially financial companies interested in developing their business in the Paris region. So we do have offices in the US and China, and our agency acts as a catalyst to serve them in their business development in France. So our main services include discover, plan, set up, and accelerate. So we will see very briefly and what are the next steps for you. So to have a better view of what's going on here, Paris represents the first financial marketplace in the Eurozone today. And we have a concentrations of large corporates here in Paris and in the region, which amounts to 33 world Fortune 500 companies, all dedicated to have their financial activity here and interacting with fintechs. So regarding the Paris financial rankings, we are quite, and we benefit of quite an impressive rankings because we are number 2 in terms of insurance companies. We have 4 banks in the European top 10. And we are the first country in Europe for securities custody. And the Euronext, so Paris Euronext financial market is the number 1 in the Eurozone with 40% of the market capitalization, with over 30 billion euro raised last year. So among every respect, it's a financial hub that any fintech can benefit from when growing from Paris and when entering the French market. So regarding figures, jobs, we got a concentration of talents of 1.2 million jobs in France, and a big percentage is located, that means some 330,000 are located in the Paris area for direct jobs, and we got even more, 400,000 in terms of sector professionals, I mean lawyers, IT professionals, fintech companies, software vendors, all related to the financial sector and working together. And over 100 financial research labs collaborate with banks, insurance, and asset managers. And over 1,000 financial researchers worked either from Paris or from the Plateau of Saclay, where you have concentrations of the elite engineering schools and business schools. So feel free to ask any questions anytime with the chat or with the app provided by the system. Yeah, it's quite amazing to have 4 of the largest banks headquartered in the Paris region. So they have a digital factory here in Paris, asset management teams, and open innovation team, which is growing every year to collaborate with fintechs in every way. Just to give you an example, Société Générale has a startup product team which is partnering with 750 startups. So not only fintechs, but as well IT companies that works on the cloud or on SaaS project, and that not only are from France, but all over the world. I mean, mostly from the big financial hub where Société Générale is present. I mean, London, New York City, Tokyo, Hong Kong. So just to give you a figure of investment, BNP Paribas has invested some 300 million euros in digital transformation this year in 2019, and they are partnering with an increasing number of global fintechs, and that's a top priority. So that's why they have, for instance, partnered with the Californian VC from Sunnyvale, California, Plug and Play Ventures, to recruit on their behalf global fintechs from all over the world, and to make them work from Paris, from Station F. We'll see that in detail later on. So, and among all these 4 banks, blockchain seems to be a priority in terms of IT, because the innovation diagnosis reflects a number of inefficiencies in our financial system. So for the customers, be it an individual or a professional, it's too costly for the clients, despite despite it's not sufficiently. The system is often too slow, too national, and so it leaves rooms for fintechs to come into it and play their role and do point of POC or minimum viable products with banks, asset managers, or insurance. So maybe we can focus on neobanks, because neobanks, we see a spread of a couple of neobanks from France and from global neobanks coming to France. And we noticed that the top 3, that means Nickel from BNP Paribas, N26 from Germany, or Revolut from London, all capture 80% of this French market. So it's very concentration market. Just the same figure at the big largest banking groups that we spoke earlier. That means BNP Paribas, Société Générale, Crédit Agricole, and the fourth one all make as well 80% of the French global banking markets. So the success stems from their innovation, very simple and very low cost, of course. And but we'll see in the coming years new success in terms of neobanks targeting both individuals and professionals. So one of the strengths of the Paris region is, of course, its finance innovation cluster. So this cluster is strong of 500 members, and so it's strong in terms of financing. 40 VCs builds a real community to finance fintechs and are looking for the most disruptive or giving them some upside, financial upside. I mean, 30 academics are in the cluster, and had over 140 banks. So it's quite convenient and useful for any fintechs concerning the French market to join and become a member of Finance Innovation. So that's why we'll do together an afternoon of event during the Paris FinTech Forum. The day one on the 28th of January will be having different roundtable and panels in the afternoon with finance innovation. So funding is quite important for fintechs, of course, because profitability is not there year one. So I can this investment in fintechs is definitely surging in 2019. Not to say booming. We got, if you look at the graph, the number of funds raised in the first half of 2019 is almost the same of the previous year. So this exponential growth is due to as well the amount of the average deal tickets rising from 5 to 9 million in a year, so almost a doubling. And there were some substantial funding transaction on 5 fintechs or insurtech. Wind, so Alan is a famous insurtech. United Credit for crowdfunding. Shift Technology, Launch R for ticket luncheon simplification, and banking. So regarding VC funds, they are massively investing in fintech these days. We gave you here a few examples. So Truffle Capital is very active, and so we'll partner with them during the Paris FinTech Forum in the afternoon, and the day one on 28th January coming very soon. But in the number of deals done, Kima Ventures comes first. It's financed by the fortune of the telco billionaire Xavier Niel, which has which is a way of diversification of his fortune, investing in different fintechs and capital. But of course, banks as well have their putting their money and the money of the customers in fintechs because of significant upside potential. BNP Paribas alone has 13 different financial vehicles to finance fintechs, from seed to large companies. So if you want to be on stage on the Paris FinTech Forum, you need to be a CEO. So that means it's very simple. You need to fill up a form, and which is on parisfintechforum.com/speakers. So now it's high time you do that if you want to pitch, and if you're a CEO, or if you want your CEO to pitch for your fintech. But I think it's definitely worth it. And so last year, about 150 fintechs were pitching, and among about 900 applications. So it's 1 out of 6, but even remote countries from like Australia managed to pitch, or Peru. So there's room for every country, and it's worth trying. So you have here a picture of the big auditorium where you have 700 seats welcoming speakers, and the main hall of the forum where you can visit some 150 booths. So now focus on the finance events in the Paris region. So Paris FinTech Forum is the first one in the calendar, starting in January, as I said, on 2 days. You'll have over 250 CEO who will speak. fintechs from 70 countries will be there, and you'll have a choice of keynotes of 65 panels, and so it's really a must event for you to come either as a visitor or if you are lucky to pitch. So then in March, it's Paris Blockchain Week Summit. Will be like last year in Station F. So it's as well a very good event with over 2,500 attendees, 130 speakers, a lot of from China, London, and the US. So it's definitely worth it to get involved with use cases. And I mean, the prominent blockchain and digital assets organization will be there. So now AI Paris is across the board AI. It's not only for the financial sector, but the financial sector is the first, I would say, vertical market dedicated to AI. And you'll have 110 exhibitors in Paris in June. It's in the Palais des Congrès, so a nice place close to hotels. And you'll have 80 speakers and over 40 workshops there. And the last edition, there were 5,000 attendees. So that means the interest generated by AI in France. So Vivatech in June as well, mid-June this year, 11 to 13 June. So the Paris region will have a huge booth welcoming visitors. But in terms of a financial player, the winner takes all. So this year, BNP Paribas will be having a huge booth of 400 square meters, which will host its international fintechs, invited by its international subsidiaries on small pods. So, and you have as well different fintechs once in a while by country delegation from Quebec, Canada, or some German lender, which will exhibit with fintechs. So then you have in July, 7 to 8 July, Paris Europlace International Financial Forum. So this forum is different from the others because it is institutional. That means you have the big players of institution like the World Bank is there, the OECD, the French Central Bank, the European Central Bank, the French and European regulators all are playing, giving panels. And on the political side, the same. The Prime Minister is giving a speech every year. He has a big lunch table where you can join for a fee. It's not free, but you can be invited upon there's a selection committee as well, but to join the huge table on the day one of this event in July. So, and the president of the Paris region always give a speech to these prominent events. So basically you have about 2,000 visitors to this event, which is free, it's good to mention. And the 400 members of this organization, Paris Europlace, will join every year to, it's a big get together. And this year, from an innovation point of view, there was a focus on blockchain. You wouldn't be surprised with LiquidChain and EaseNess use cases presented. We'll talk more about this event in my blockchain presentation. And then PhD Talent Career Fair. So I think it's interesting because this is the world's largest career fair dedicated to PhDs, which is quite unusual. And there is a focus on fintech. So the finance innovation cluster is there. And it's really an opportunity for fintech startups to expand their teams in a framework that breaks what is happening in the world of finance. And so this is a must in the scientific community, and especially if you want to innovate in the Paris region. So, so regarding the support, so HR tools at your disposal for your recruitment strategy. For instance, the R&D tax credit in France is the most generous in Europe, so the rate is 30%. But for young PhDs below 2 years, this is doubled, so to a 60% R&D tax credit. And so it's a good way to optimize your contribution and make a sound investment innovation. So maybe this scheme explains why last year in general the Paris region became the #1 destination for R&D projects, R&D centers in the world. So it comes a long way. After 3 years, gradually it increased, and as well the availability of good PhD is one explanation. And you should as well benefit from the CIFRE scheme for PhD candidates. So that means it's a 14,000 annual grant for the first 3 years of your recruitment. So regarding the pool of talents in the Paris area, it's pretty exceptional because we have a concentrations of business school, engineering schools in or around Paris, and I put a few logos like the Sorbonne, which is famous in finance sector, HEC, INSEAD, and ESSEC as well in business schools, which has finance masters now well established and attracting international students. And so you can tap on this large pool of talents. So regarding now blockchain, I promise you a focus on blockchain. And so Isness is a good example of a use case base that is now operational with 30,000 transactions per second. So it's been managed by 6 asset management companies who own now this platform. And it's real. It's live since March 2019. And so at present, there's no cryptocurrency or coins, but over 100 million accounts could be simultaneously administered. So it's a good example how together, I mean, different competitors are working together to make it happen on a new platform. So the record keeping is now compatible with all distribution channel. So another example is Worldline. So to bring the full value of the blockchain in this process, Worldline has developed a mobile app which enriches the banking app by automatically inserting the stolen card number when it's available into the blockchain ledger. And if you have questions regarding these slides, do not hesitate to dial them in your computer, and I will receive them and answer them after the presentation, or use the chat if you prefer. So that means at point of sales terminal level, Worldline has implemented a customized software to enable the terminal to dialogue with the blockchain network and update the hot list or the blacklist. That means the rejected stolen cards. So they are directly and immediately informed to block the card as long as the point of sale terminals are connected to the blockchain network. So regarding institutes and research supporting the blockchains, we have a big tradition in the Paris area of mathematicians, but it's supported as well by different institutes, either private one like Consensus. Consensus is a huge, now the largest blockchain employer in France, private employer. It has a lab in Paris, but you can rely as well on public labs like SystemX, Systematic Paris Region Cluster, Finance Innovation Cluster, or the public IT institute in area for software development. Not to mention the least CEA Tech Institute, quite active and quite business friendly with fintechs. So another example of blockchain infrastructure, which is now live, is LiquidChain. It's quite unique because 9 actors from the European financial place agreed to set aside competition, I would say, to build a solution for the entire ecosystem. And the key benefits for the SMEs are to be connected directly with investors, and it's a faster, cheaper, and I would say simpler infrastructure. And this enables us to create a community workflow. So Euronext, the Paris Stock Exchange, is the main shareholder, but you have a series of different banks involved as well. So regarding the supervisor, AMF, the equivalent in the UK of the FCA or SEC in the US. So any company supervised by the FCA in England or in the UK can benefit from a fast-track pre-approval process. That means that they have the pre-authorization indicates that the AMF has not identified any major obstacle for you to do business in France. And so what's the point in getting it? As soon as you receive your pre-authorization, you will benefit from the advice of a coach to accompany you in the process and to facilitate your domiciliation of your fund in France. So it's mainly for asset managers, this measure. And the AMF commits to be quite fast in delivering the authorization, provided, of course, you fill up the necessary forms. But we are well connected with the regulator to benefit from these measures. So now regarding the way to jumpstart your business. So if you are a small or medium-sized fintech, it makes sense to join an accelerator. That means, well, maybe it's better with a picture, yeah, with a map, so locating different accelerators. So we got quite a few dedicated to fintechs and many more regarding digital. So regarding fintechs, let's focus now on BNP Paribas Plug and Play. So the Plug and Play Accelerator program runs now a 40-week batch of fintechs. That means that for you, there is a powerful group of banking, insurance, and fintech experts. They are together to help you in the acceleration, time to market, fundraising, and build the revenue pipeline. So they will provide the platform to pilot your product and scale your business. So it appears to be an all-in-one startup ecosystem located at Station F. So now a very popular place where you have over 1,000 startups living there and working there for the time being. So BNP has other solutions in terms of acceleration programs. I mean, we are innovation, or to put it simple, Y has 2 options. Y lead and accelerations up to 44 months. That means that fintechs can join either the one in Paris or the one in Massy, in the Plateau of Saclay co-working space. So that means you are sure to get good business connections to BNP customers, not only the BNP entities, but their customers. You receive a coaching from an advisor, invitation to events, and connections with a network of mentors. So this is quite popular because the 1,600 square meter of office space in Paris is often full, and there's still a bit of availability in Massy, in the outskirts of Paris. So with Boost is different. It's a 6 months acceleration program operated by Atelier BNP, which has satellite office in Shanghai and San Francisco. And this is a program to co-innovate, and the selection is through a call for project. So what about Société Générale? Société Générale is quite eager as well to work with startups, and they have a solution called Le Plateau in the Dunes complex. That means a huge brand new complex outside Paris, and it hosts startups full time for 6 months. So the best is to do a POC with a bank or MVP, and this program is pretty good for the qualification of your fintechs if you want to work with Société Générale entities in the future. So you probably have heard of Le Swave in Paris La Défense. So this is in an attractive incubator of 2,000 square meters in a wonderful and amazing location. The big arch of La Défense, where you have a picture. So something at the 21st floor. Sorry. So Le Swave is orientated towards takeoff, clearly. And so for 5,000 euro per year, you benefit from increasing visibility, assistance for recruitment, and internationalization. So it's definitely an option. So, but the selection is pretty fierce compared to the others. Maybe that's the most selective program, probably the most well-known. And you have as well a possibility to be either in a co-working space or a private office. Of course, private offices are a bit more expensive, but you benefit from a big support from the IT, from Société Générale, from insurance experts, from AG2 or La Mondiale, and a VC like New Alpha Asset Management, and strategic advice from external consulting. So let's switch to the last part of our presentation, which is the ICO. So the AMF has put on the table an optional visa. So a visa for a specific fundraising operation. So this MA visa only covers the offer. That means there's no follow-up by the MF of the issuer and its project at the end of the offer. It's a quality label on the structure of a fundraising event, and it's optional. And so it's quite appreciated and it's good to know the conditions of the visa issued by the AMF. What are the issuer requirements? So you need to be incorporated in France as a person established or registered in France, and you need to prepare as well an information document giving all relevant information, and the token, the rights and obligation attached to the tokens for the use and conditions of token will be registered. So you will need to give information on the project to be funded. So it's quite straightforward, and it's only the beginning, so it's very recent. And regarding the new DASP, which stands for Digital Asset Service Provider status, covering a large number of services. So to be clear, digital assets in this reform means tokens issued during ICOs, during initial coin offerings, and virtual currencies. But financial instruments are excluded. So the large number of services covered are custody of digital assets on behalf of third parties, the purchase, sale of digital assets against legal tender or other digital assets, and the operations of a digital asset trading platform, what we call exchange, or other mandate that we call financial mandate. That means portfolio management on behalf of third parties. And so it appears to be the best possible compromise between protecting investors and encouraging innovation. So this ICO framework is now operational. Several projects were received by the EMF, but there's been no official submission. So DESP licenses are now possible from this month, from December 2019, and there are several expressions of interest from market players. So this is the end of the presentation, and now we have some Q&A time for you. So I received the questions from Jim Smith. What percentage of the capital invested in French fintech startups is coming from French VCs? So from French VC as a majority so far. That's what I mentioned, the list, Iris Capital, Kima Ventures. Especially in seed and Series A, Series B funding rounds. But regarding late stage investment, late stage rounds, French VC are pretty absent. So the big tickets are taken by mostly US and UK investors, UK VCs. And that's prompted the Philippe TB report, which was released in July. So if you are interested, Jim, I can forward you this report. It's in French, but it explains very well the gap of financing for VCs between late stage and seed. And new players from the US, like Plug and Play, is playing an increasing role in seed financing in fintechs. Second questions from is the surge in fintech companies moving to France could also be a result of Brexit? Yeah, of course. I think there is some uncertainties regarding the Brexit. So new ventures tend to choose between the big pillars of Europe, Germany and France. And regarding the legal background and the legal stability, France, and especially Paris, has a good reputation. That's why Paris attracted the EBA, the European Banking Agency. That means all the European member states decided to transfer from London to Paris this European regulator, especially for the systemic equilibrium resulting from low interest rates and the risk it represents. And yeah, so this is another questions, I think, coming from let me see. Okay, what is your experience in the speed of the IMF licensing process, especially for investment companies? In most countries, they can delay a 90-day process up to 12 to 15 months, and time is the big enemy of startups. Yeah, I agree with you. Time is definitely an issue. And I think to give you my personal experience, I was last week submitted questions to the regulator, and they answered the same day to set up a meeting 2 days after. So they are very prompt, and so there's no problem of reactivity. So it's more up to the company to be well advised and to have all the documents, whether in French or in English. And so English is fine. And I had 1 month ago the testimonial of checkout.com. So it's a big in terms of fundraising fintech from the UK, which raised 230 million US dollar, and they chose to put the second headquarter in Paris. So they keep London, but they put second headquarter in Paris because all the documentations were in English, were accepted, unlike Germany, which still requests to have all the documents and the paperwork in German. So English is definitely usable in France, especially in the fintech and in the tech scene. So I have another questions. What are the media support set for or from Paris? Yes, Paris has definitely a big media scene, especially all the Bloomberg, CNBC have offices in Paris. And I think only London and Paris are the true global cities in terms of media. And we have even Russian TV opening an office lately in Paris. So what about Fintech TV? Yeah, Fintech TV is a French player in for providing information, and definitely it's a way to, and I think we'll meet again Fintech TV at the Paris Fintech Forum where we first met. So now the questions, with different countries having different regulations on blockchain, how is France as a destination to invest in this sector? So I think the French regulators are pushing to have a more European-wide regulation on blockchain. So the success of Paris and of France stems from the big concentration of corporates who need to have a new infrastructure on blockchain, and because it's cheaper, faster, and more reliable. So that's why Consensus, for instance, has committed to double or triple its staff presence in Paris, which is 60 people today, 60 engineers, and maybe as well the quality of its engineers they recruited is an explanation as well of its the major expansion in Paris. So we will send you a PDF of the presentation, and thank you for your participation and your patience. And so we'll keep you informed of the next FinTech webinar to be held in March 2020. So, and hope to see you again for some of you to the next event at the Paris FinTech Forum. Thank you again.